Welcome back to another Racer X roundtable. It's only two of us today. I got Kellen Brauer with me, and of course, I'm Donnie Southers. We're talking about World Supercross. The series kicks off this weekend in London. It's a 6-round series, and we do have some early news as one of the rounds has already been replaced. Unfortunately, whispers started a few weeks ago that the French round might be lost, and that was confirmed and will be replaced by Abu Dhabi. Kellen, what do we know about the schedule? Was there anything extra in terms of that switch?
Really, not a whole lot. Obviously, is public right now. Like even WSX hasn't publicly announced that France is canceled. They've just moved it kind of out of the main part of their schedule. There's a few rumors floating around about ticket sales or about cost of the venues or whatever it is, but I think it just maybe boiled down to them as financially it wasn't going to be worth it to do whatever it is. That's kind of the case study with this WSX series going back a few years when they did like the um, I forget what it's called, the SMX Cup or something like that in Europe. It got attention, but it didn't draw the crowd that I think most people expected for having like Supercross and those type of guys in Europe. So it's a interesting case study. I'm surprised France is the one that drops off because France normally kills it with their Supercross attendance, but maybe there was something there that they just couldn't quite get figured out.
So we know where the race is. We know when it's happening this weekend. But what I have not seen a lot about is how to watch it. So me and you actually looked together and tried to sort this out because obviously this is a very complicated thing. This isn't US where you just have TV rights for one thing and then the world gets a pay-per-view. They've actually negotiated TV rights with like every single market, which is really smart for them, but it is a little bit more difficult for us race fans to watch. So there is a pay-per-view option available, but it's going to be on a delay. And you found out that you can also watch it on TV as well on your cable package, right?
Right. So it's going to be kind of the same format as last year. They had signed agreements, at least in the US, with Fox Sports. So FS1 and FS2 is going to air it at some point. They say live on WSX, but I remember last year I think they said the same thing and it was delayed a day. And it looks like, based on scheduling, that it is delayed a day again. But like you said, WSX.TV is the package where you can go. There's a way to sign up and watch it. But if you're in a market where it's restricted to a certain TV package, like it is for the US, you can't watch it live still. You can only watch it after it's aired on TV in your market. So it's a little bit confusing. I feel like there's quite a few moving parts with it. But, you know, I think if you go to WSX TV, for the most part, it will direct you in some good directions with that, or at least look at some of their PRs. Simplest form, it's on FS1 or FS2 in the US.
All right, so for those that are uninitiated, if you didn't follow it last year, World Supercross is a little unique. There are actually 10 teams. Each team has to field 2 riders in each class, so there will always be 20 guys, and there will be a couple wild cards that get to enter in every round. So let's quickly go down all of the guys that we definitely know are racing, what teams that they're going to be on. 450 class, obviously the big one, Ken Roxon. He's got the #1 plate. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere. If you are anywhere on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, that yellow bike looks so good with a 1. Pipes Motorsports, of course, Dustin Pipes, team principal of the sister team HEP Suzuki in the States, is going to be Roxon, as well as Kyle Chisholm. Rick Ware has Joey Savacci and Colt Nichols, which is a really formidable team. Firepower Honda, Dean Wilson, Justin Brayton. Bud Racing, Kawasaki has Justin Hill and Cedric Subaros. Honda Nils has Jordi Tixier and Kevin Morans. Team GSM, an all-France team, except for one of their 250 guys. We got Thomas Vermette and Greg Aranda. FXR Club MX has Matt Moss and was supposed to be Cole Thompson, but Josh Cartwright is actually stepping up because Thompson had an injury. MDK is Cade Clayson and Anthony Rodriguez. Moto Concepts Honda is Vince Freeze and Cole Seeley. And rounding it out, Craig Dack Racing will be Josh Hill and Grant Harlan. Let's talk little bench racing here, 450 class. I mean, obviously, Roxon is going to be the guy to beat. He's the defending champion. Who do you think has the biggest claim to maybe being competition for him?
I think we're going to kind of see a very similar brand of racing to what we saw last year. Maybe Roxon has it a little bit more figured out because he had a couple weird moments, I feel like, with they get a flat tire in the second race to the finale and a couple things like that. But, Roxon, Brayton, I think Freeze coming back, we're going to be a little bit, how is he? Because it's been a while since we've seen him race. But cool to have Nichols join the series. Savacci, obviously, I think he won the Australian GP last year. Dean Wilson's going to be good. Like, there's a lot of faces. I feel like we could sleep on Justin Hill even. I know he changed brands. He went from riding a KTM in American Supercross to now riding a Cowie here, but he was so good by the end of AMA Supercross. Not that he was like straight up contending with what Roxon was putting out there, but getting closer. And we could be sleeping on him too. So I feel like there's a lot of fun dynamics about like who's actually going to show up at the first round, was training this whole time, is ready to go, has their bike dialed in, because there's so many moving parts with it.
Yeah, and to your point, like there's only 6 rounds in the series. So yeah, like Roxon gets a flat tire, Roxon gets a DNF, something like that. It's all of a sudden wide open because I feel like there are 6, 7 guys that could all easily, put together 6 rounds like that. It's also really cool to see a lot of these privateer guys, some of my favorite guys in the pits, Cartwright, Cade, Josh Hill, Cole Seeley, Kevin Moran's all getting to continue racing. I know there was always a little question who's going to go, but this is actually a really, really good 450 lineup. Like all of these guys are like legit main event guys.
Yeah, 100%. And like I feel like talking about where these guys slot in, you have to realize that the format is really different. It's a triple crown, but it's a triple crown on ecstasy, I guess is how you'd call it. Like it's because instead of giving everyone a break in between, they run, I think whatever it is, like an 8-lap race, and then line them back up, and they drop the gate 2 minutes later, and then it's the same thing. And I think the last race is like a 10-minute race or something like that. But it's so fast, and they have to be obviously in great shape, but it's just way different than anything that those guys are usually accustomed to racing. And I think that makes it a little bit more fun because, like you said, some of these privateer guys like a Moran's, who's a whole shot artist, could surprise and like run up front for a while, or maybe even challenge for a win. We know Freeze is a good starter. Like he'll get in the mix as well. Like it's a completely different dynamic than just, oh, they're going out and they're doing their 20. Like they have to last for 3 motos on top of each other in a very short time frame.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely nice that it is a completely different format. So that way you're not just watching, Supercross again. It is really cool. And maybe our series can actually, borrow from it a little bit if there's some stuff that really works out. Let's look at the 250 class a little bit. We have defending champion Shane McElrath. He'll be on Rick Ware Racing. He's going to be joined by Henry Miller. Firepower Honda is bringing Max Anstey as well as young Gage Linville. Honda Nils has Chris Blos and Kyle Peters, which will be a really stout team for those short races. MDK has Justin Bogle, Max Miller. FXR Club MX is Luke Neese and Enzo Lopes. Team GSM is Maxime Despres and Jace Owen. Moto Concepts is bringing the hype. Mike Alessi makes his racing return, as well as Mitchell Oldenburg. And then Pipes Motorsports has Colin Park, Hunter Yoder. Bud Racing, Anthony Bourdon, and Adrian Escoffier. Is that how you pronounce that? You're my GP guy.
I think it's Escoffier.
Escoffier. All right.
Yeah.
And then Craig Dack Racing has Aaron Tonti, and Luke Clout. Craig Dack obviously is Australian legend. He's the guy responsible for bringing Chad over here. So no surprise to see 2 Australians on that team. All right, let's bench race some more. Obviously, Shane's the defending champion. There's no reason to think he can't repeat, but who do you think gives him the most trouble?
I feel like it's Anstey. Anstey was so good on a 250 in Supercross this year. I think he he exceeded my expectations of what I expected him jumping back into that class. Not that I didn't think he couldn't win, but to be consistently podium threat all the time, won a main event, like those are things I just didn't really associate with older version of Max Anstey coming back to a 250. So I feel like that's raised him above where I would have initially put him on this list, because I think like Shane was good last year, so was Max, but I feel like Max having all this time on the 250 and just being able to build on that. Do we even maybe say that they're switched? Like the power rankings wise, Max coming in is the favorite, having all that backing from Supercross this year.
That's very true. And one guy that I want to point out that I would not be surprised if he comes out here and just wins all 6 of these rounds, because he was incredible in Supercross, is Enzo Lopes. I mean, he came at great starts, led up front, led a lot of heat race laps too. I would love to see him have a real breakout and compete with those 2, if not maybe even beat them. Let's talk about the veterans though. We got Blos, Peters, Justin Bogle, Mike Alessi. Like, I like that the 250 class is such a mix of young guys like Colin Park and Hunter Yoder, and then like those older guys that are coming back just to race for fun or maybe get a paycheck. And I feel like there's going to be like a clash maybe of like some style, and because everybody's kind of out racing for something different.
Yeah, and I would like to say it like it's not that I'm sleeping on Justin Bogle, but he did get hurt as he missed the start of the Canadian Nationals. I don't know that he's going to be 100% when we start WSX. So I think that you could look at him as a race winner as well. But yeah, all these old guys coming back in, it's going to be so interesting to see how they kind of slot against some of these guys because, we saw Blos against a lot of these guys in Supercross this year, but Bogle, we haven't seen back on a 250 against some of these guys. That'll be exciting. Like, I don't know what to expect out of Alessi at all. He could be whole shot race winning speed, or he could be not in the mix at all. I feel like it's probably the latter now that he's in the later stages of his career, but who knows? And then I feel like Tanti and Clout are kind of the wild cards because when they have raced in the US, they were solid. And now they're like the elites in Australia and they've built up and gotten to a level where they're very successful over there. So they might even kind of surprise and come over and just like get right into the mix with some of these guys as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up those two because that kind of moves me to my next point. So, one of the things that's super unique about World Supercross and one of the things that I love is this team format. So, obviously, they crown a 450 champion, they crown a 250, but then there's also an actual team battle where all four of these guys are earning points for their team. So, in the US, we always say they're teammates, but it doesn't really mean anything. That just means they park under the same truck. But these guys legit are teammates. They might want to help their guy a little bit to get some points for the truck. But Craig Dack Racing, Tonti, Clout, Harlan, Josh Hill, that's a really formidable team. And a very under the radar, that's a Moneyball team, if there is a Moneyball team to have. But let's talk real quick about who do you think is the strongest team? So obviously Pipes has Ken Roxon, and Chiz is going to Chiz, but Colin Park and Hunter Yoder are both younger. They're not as proven. Who do you think is your early favorite to win the team championship?
I think it's going to be probably between like Firepower, Rick Ware, and then man, it's tough. Like maybe Pipes and CDR also get in there, but like I feel like Firepower and Rick Ware have what I would consider, aside from Linville on Firepower, like your most established, these guys know how to ride Supercross type of dudes. It's obviously an all-American Rick Ware racing team and basically what I would call an all-American Firepower Honda team. Obviously Wilson and Anstey are not American, but we associate them now with living in the US and racing Supercross. Like I think that those teams with Brayton and his expertise and skill set, like paired with Dean on a 450 for Firepower, like that's a really solid team, top 5 speed, like all day long, I think, between the two of them. And then Anstey, we're pegging as a guy that can maybe win the the SX2 title, I should say. I think that that's a great team, and I think that they could probably knock Pipes down even if Roxon wins the championship in WSX because he doesn't have quite the exact same supporting cast of guys around him.
It's a good point, yeah, and I would love to see Pipes because obviously Colin Park and Hunter Yoder are both young, and they had a really good last year, the rookie year, they were a little shaky. This year they stepped up, and maybe this could be their breakout. But it does got to be difficult. They were both riding different manufacturers not that long ago. I mean, a lot of these guys are riding different manufacturers not that long ago.
Yeah.
Do you know, is Rick Ware, are they all riding the same bike? Do you know?
No, I don't. I think I believe Joey and Colt are both on Cowies, but I thought like Henry Miller is on a KTM or something like that. I know one of them is not on the exact same bike. It might be Colt actually. Colt might be. He's been on a Cowie too, so maybe they all are on Cowies. But I mean, that's the unique thing about these teams is that none of them are tied to a brand because the way that the series has gone so far, the European factories and the American factories haven't really wanted to support this. And so you end up with teams that can kind of run whatever they want. Like you just bring which bike suits your needs and race it.
Yeah, if it's interesting, if you look at the teams on the website, there are a few like Firepower Honda, but that's because they're literally getting some sort of backing from it to obviously name the team that. But yeah, the rest of them are just like Pipes Motorsports, not HEP, Twisted T Suzuki, or what have you. How do we feel about the series as a whole, the format? Like, are you excited for this to run? Obviously, luckily, we're only getting one overlap. It does suck that it's running up against Red Bud, and you're going to have to we're missing a couple of the riders, the guys like Grant Harlan that are really tearing it up outdoors. They're going to have to go and miss this round, but good for the sport as a whole to have a more expanded series, especially because it's not competing with outdoors at all.
Yeah, I mean, what I would love to see with this series, and obviously we're kind of part of Pro Motocross working for Racer X a little bit, but what I think is the best plan for them is to not overlap and be the series that becomes, if you only want to race Supercross, then that's fine. You take the summer off and then you race September through May and only do Supercross, and you race the 3 months of WSX in the wintertime, in the north hemisphere wintertime, I should say, and then race American Supercross. Because I think if that were the case, you could get more top level US talent or even top level GP talent to consider racing it. I think at the current status though, you're just having so many guys just say, "Yeah, I'm making too good of money to race GPs or race US nationals to say it's worth it to leave the series for one round and start the British GP this weekend." Or France was supposed to be in there as well, but now basically what we have is a WSX championship that is entirely after everything except Motocross of Nations, except for the first round. The first round just kind of splits it up and takes away a lot of the top level talent I think they could get. So I like it. I like that it's more money for the riders. I like that we get to see privateers get on teams like this. But I think if they want that top level talent, this overlap thing isn't going to work.
Yeah. And hopefully, though, moving forward, because now I know a lot of privateers were upset that the SMX purse wasn't released until kind of later in the year, because a lot of guys were like, hey, we would have totally came for some outdoors and it might have changed the layout here. But yeah, I mean, now that we know that the SMX, and that's really exciting, that big payout. And then we now have this where if this would work, where we could fit 6 rounds in without overlapping, man, what an incredible time to be a dirt bike fan. We would have
Racing
12
year round.
Yeah, never miss out. All right, before we wrap it up, give me your London predictions. Who do you think takes the overall in both classes?
I think it's pretty easy to go with Roxon, rolling with the momentum, obviously, that he had at High Point. He looked solid. I don't know where his testing is, but he basically took 1 week to race a national and was right at the front battling with those guys. So I don't think you can say that anybody in this group is going to beat him. And then for 250s, I think I'm going to roll with Anstey. Like, I just feel like having not focused on nationals at all after this, not that Shane did either, but I think that Shane dealing with switching bikes and all this other stuff maybe knocks him down a little bit for me. Lopes by the end, I think Lopes even got a little hurt towards the end of Supercross, right? So like he's not going to be flowing from everything that went well. So I think I'm going to go Anstey and Roxon for me. What about you?
I agree. I definitely. I mean, how do you vote against Roxon? Like, I would have liked to have a discussion here of any kind, but after he came to High Point and just put on a clinic, pretty much, nobody could touch Jet. And then Ken just said, hold my twisted T, and he came out and did it. So, yeah, I can't vote against Ken Roxon here. But on the 250s, like you said, I would love to have said Enzo Lopes if he was healthy. I might, and I think that after we have this 3-month break before we pick it back up, I think he is really, really going to be a force to be reckoned with. But right now, I mean, how could you vote against Sugar Shane? Number one. We'll just go number one. Number one. I'll go the safe picks. But Kellen, thanks for joining me for this. And thank you guys at home for watching. Make sure to check your local listings to find out how you can watch World Supercross and visit WSX.tv. Is that the website?
Yep. And then WSXchampionship.com is where you also go for all the updates and news about it as well. Or racerxonline.com. We're going to have stuff too. We got results. We got articles coming out about it, and we'll post up videos and stuff as well. So be sure to check us out.
Cool. Thanks for watching.